Get fucked, Bloomberg. Our feature-length AI GPU black market documentary is back online after Bloomberg's illegitimate copyright strike against us, which means that Bloomberg did not follow up its illegitimate copyright strike with a frivolous lawsuit. That means YouTube has reinstated this video, and a lot has happened in the time since they copyright struck us, so to get everyone back up to speed. In just the last couple weeks, a former Bloomberg writer published a story stating that Bloomberg was once called by the Chinese government and threatened over a tweet about Taiwan, leading to the then Bloomberg contract writer censoring his own tweets after a call from Bloomberg management. Forbes published a story including details of our bout with Bloomberg, but unfortunately it vanished after publication. Bloomberg came back to us a second time about licensing a clip of the President of the United States that we have a legal right to use under fair use. And in the greatest moment of irony, a Tesla content creator named Tesla Flex tweeted, quote, "I didn't know Bloomberg could just rip my videos without asking for permission," end quote. But worse than that, they didn't even attribute him. Bloomberg attributed his work to Consumer Reports, which is a different publication entirely. So first of all, apparently Bloomberg does believe in fair use and is willing to potentially make that argument. And secondly, when they might argue fair use of the clip, they attribute credit to the wrong person. It's certainly useful that Bloomberg is illustrating its belief in fair use and copyright law and is creating evidence of its beliefs and rules for them, but not for anyone else. And plenty more, but more importantly, our movie is back on the platform. It's linked below and we need your help to get it back into the algorithm, which is why we're making this video, so please check it out. It's sat at 0 views for about 2 weeks, which is basically a death penalty on YouTube. If you didn't hear about it before, the movie details smugglers in the US who move export-controlled GPUs illegally into China from the perspective of the US, and then details buyers, users, dealers, and fixers on the Chinese side. For those operating in China, all of this is legal. These GPUs aren't illegal in China, after all. For the smuggler we found in the US, though, he is violating US export controls by exporting banned cards he tests in the back of his vehicle in the States. Something that people are actively being prosecuted for by the Department of Justice. It is a really cool story, and it's crazy that we got the level of access that we did, and that all these people were willing to go on camera for the most part without so much as a face blur. And we're pretty proud of the fact that we have at this point published the most detail on this pipeline on the internet. It's in that video. That's where you can get it. And that's why we're so happy it's back up. All we wanted at this point was for people to see it, because fortunately, thanks to you all, we were financially supported to make it, and then it was taken down. So we're happy it's back out there. Also, you can still get a copy of it on a USB drive on our store from one of our 3 remaining backer tiers. The Kingpin tier has closed. We closed that on the 8th, I think. The others will close soon as well, but you can also watch it now on our channel for free. For all of you who have re-uploaded it, just link back to ours if you don't mind and direct your people to the source. But who knows? There's always a chance that they take it back down. And have I got ideas for if that happens? As for us, we are at this point keeping all options and remedies open, including legal if we feel like it's necessary or worthwhile. As for this topic, this whole process has been very educational. It's not been a particularly fun education, but most aren't. And we've learned a lot, and we're ready to share it with not only viewers who are just curious about how it all works and how content you are interested in might get suppressed or squelched without you really even knowing about it, but I think also just for other creators watching this, it gives you a behind the scenes of, like, you know, they give you some buttons you can click when there's a copyright strike, and they make it really scary if you contest it, because it's like penalty of perjury, channel deletion and termination of your account. Your money goes away if you had any in escrow. And they make it sound pretty scary, but we've gone through that process. Now we can tell you how it works on the other side. Before that, this video is brought to you by the Montech HSO1 and HSO2 cases. The HSO1 and HSO2 cases differ by way of a mesh front or a curved glass front. We previously reviewed these cases in our intensive benchmarking process and found them to be overall high build quality, with thermals comparable between the two designs. The rear chamber of the case uniquely brings the power supply forward and perforates the rear wall of the case, allowing for more air movement internally while providing a different look. The rear of the case uses a fan mounting mechanism for 2 separate fans that can be coupled together with a plate, improving convenience. The HSO1 and HSO2 also invert with minimal effort, allowing the computer to present to the opposite side without needing to reconfigure the entire build. Learn more at the links in the description below. So a lot of YouTubers would be rightfully worried about resisting a copyright strike. If you get 3 strikes, they might terminate your account. For anyone but the big, invincible, multi-billion-dollar media conglomerates, it's termination all around. But for them, strike away and assume no one will fight back because it's worked so far. At best, fighting back will get you reinstated in 10 business days, like it did for us. At its most aggressive, you'd have to get your damages back, sue a company that in this instance is significantly larger and that specifically employs soul-sucking vampires whose entire job is to sit in an ivory tower commanding little peons around like an RTS of some kind and just siphon the lifeblood out of smaller businesses where they actually want to contribute something to society to keep their own vampiric coffers stuffed. While we do have very real damages that we can prove, it would be a serious undertaking that would distract from what we're here to do. I'm still thinking about it. Companies like Bloomberg, though, they know that, and they bet on it. And in this instance, fighting back at least resulted in a small victory for us, where the video's back up and Bloomberg can go get fucked. Now this video, the rest of it will go over some of how the copyright strike system works specifically on YouTube, because it's kind of unique, how the DMCA laws work, because YouTube has to follow those, but it also deviates, does its own thing in some places within compliance of the law. And then we'll also talk about some of the behind the scenes, and hopefully this helps some people who are fighting abusive copy strike claims from large entities like Bloomberg. And honestly, at this point, I am just relieved that people can see our video again, because it was an enormous undertaking for the team. All right, a lot has happened in the last month. We'll give you a timeline of what happened in our specific instance first to get everyone back up to speed on the same page and the same video. And we'll talk about some of the background of how this system works and where its flaws are. Here's the timeline. We finished our month of travel all over Asia for our documentary, and then we released it a little bit late, but we got some new stuff in as a result. Then the China Talk podcast had me on to discuss the documentary. I'll link it below. Then Forbes spoke with me for an article. Next, Ed Zitron from Better Offline had me on to talk about the work. I'll link those below too. Then, seemingly feeling left out, Bloomberg reared its head. Bloomberg has had me on its podcast in the past, but recently published its own poorly executed version of the same topic that saw its views tank when we went live, and then coincidentally, they saw their views recovering when they took us down. Huh. Interesting. Bloomberg had different ideas this time. Instead of inviting us on to talk about it and share mutually in the views, it filed a copyright strike against us for our use of this clip of the President of the United States, timestamped 22 minutes to 23:15 in the original video, which included our own commentary and voiceover. And I just put it in here again for purposes including but not limited to transformative educational use for informing our audience of how this system works, which would fall under the educational aspect, but also commentary, critique, and newsworthiness of copyright law. And also after that, they emailed us and said that one of the problems they had is that they retroactively changed some of their clips after they upload them, which again is extremely interesting. Anyway, we called Bloomberg's attorneys, got yelled at, and confirmed it was manually done and not a fully hands-off automation. Louis Rossman jumped into the ring. Copyright attorney Leonard French jumped in. We sent Bloomberg a demand letter wherein our lawyer spat bars, quote, "The absence of copyright infringement should have been apparent to someone with even a basic understanding of U.S. copyright law," end quote. We flew to Bloomberg headquarters to confront them and posted a video about it. Next, our counterclaim was accepted by YouTube by lunchtime the same day. 2 weeks began to tick by as our video sat at 0 views and got buried in the algorithm, meaning Bloomberg caused significant and measurable financial harm while also suppressing coverage, which happened to be competing with its own botched failed attempt at covering the same topic. Our crowdfunding campaign skyrocketed to over $1 million in support from our viewers. Thank you, by the way, and that led to our next topic, which is I bought the entire supply of 128 gigabyte USB flash drives from Micro Center in the United States. If you went to one and they weren't there, I am so sorry. I really am. And we have a separate video coming up on the crazy machine we're using to actually make all the drives and the copies of the movie. Next, after that, Forbes published an excellently written article about the whole situation, including coverage of our battle with Bloomberg, but also just about what we're doing in general. It was really well done. Lewis noticed and mentioned that Forbes took down the article shortly after publishing for reasons we're not privy to, but the original version remains on archive.org. And as we near the end of the timeline, former Bloomberg author Noah Smith of the very cleverly named No Opinion Substack blog published an article detailing his departure from Bloomberg years ago, saying that it was over concerns of the pressures allegedly applied to Bloomberg by the Chinese government, including commentary from the author noting that he was indirectly guided to delete a tweet calling Taiwan a country while writing for Bloomberg. And finally, our video was relisted on YouTube. The way this worked, Bloomberg was put on a clock and it had 2 options after our counterclaim. Option 1, file a lawsuit against us reinforcing its commitment to a copyright infringement claim, taking it to court, illustrating that it actually believed in the takedown that it filed. Or option 2, bitch out. The second option was it could bitch out when it was confronted for being a bully and just kind of silently disappear, and it pitched out. And for the audience at home, meet me at camera 2. We don't have a camera 2. I need to move it. Okay, audience at home, it's just us now. Bloomberg can't hear us at this moment. When I use the phrase bitch out, or as a verb, to bitch out of something, or to have bitched out in the present perfect tense, my intent of using this phrase is to do so wholly inclusively. We believe that anybody is capable of bitching out of a thing, regardless of their background or their beliefs. And to ensure future universal understanding of what we mean when we use this phrase and ensure that it's received without any unintended offense to anybody, I propose that we create a new verb for this situation, which we are going to call to Bloomberg, as in to Bloomberg out of something, or to be Bloomberged. They got Bloomberged. They Bloomberged all over themselves. And now let's go back to camera 1, which there's not actually a camera over there. I'm just staring at a wall. I'll be right back. There were some back and forth conversations before they Bloomberged. During those 10 business days, Bloomberg said they'd retract the strike if we paid for a license for the footage that we used fairly under fair use of the President of the United States. We already talked about how that felt like a shakedown, but what's new is after that, they did it again. That's right. They did it 2 times that I am aware of. And Forbes even asked me in an interview, which again is on archive.org, if we would take a no-cost licensing option. Now, it is possible that at some point I may or may not have used the phrase and stated, we don't negotiate with terrorists, but I can't confirm or deny that I said those words in this situation. What I can say is that would sure be some clever legal maneuvering. And if you're a YouTuber and you believe you're truly in the right, and you've had a lawyer tell you, yeah, we think you're right, don't fall for traps like this. Not legal advice, talk to your own lawyers. But what we saw here was a situation where, very cleverly, this could be a free license, could be something easy for everyone to just move on and just get the video back up. It can be reinstated by the end of today. And people can start watching it again. You can recoup your costs on the video. The problem is, 1, that is a great way to get someone under an NDA, a non-disparagement, and then just silence them on the issue. And 2, that would then start to set in place the tools necessary for a company that is abusing the copyright strike system to then later say, you know you have to license it from us next time because you did it last time. It is really clever in the most devious ways, in my opinion, if that was their intent. It starts to set a precedent that the creator somehow knows or thinks that they need to license the thing, even if the license is free. Who's to say it won't change next time? It creates a pipeline for control of media, particularly of public figures, where there may be limited outlets that gain access or are able to film an event. It creates a slippery slope that is very dangerous, and we're not going to be any part of that bullshit. So no, we would not take a free license. See phrase I may or may not have said earlier. Now, that was a question Forbes asked me, a hypothetical. To my knowledge, Bloomberg did not offer us a free, no-cost, easy license of this sort, as it was described to us by the Forbes question. However, if they had offered that.
I asked Steve for a spicy comment on the takedown, and he said, Bloomberg is causing direct and ongoing financial harm to gamers Nexus with its illegitimate copyright strike claiming a speech by the President of the United States. Also, it can shove its copyright strike up its ass right next to the Nvidia sponsorship money. You can put that on record.
Because fair use doesn't require licenses, we refused any licensing options on principle of operating under the law and having a spine. That gets you up to speed on our situation. As for what we learned on the broader use standpoint, let's start with the copyright strike system. So when a copyright strike is filed against a YouTube channel, the video is instantly pulled, it's gone. The views are frozen in place. The money is moved to escrow, and it will either be paid to the claimant or if it's released, it'll go back to the creator eventually. The channel then receives 1 of 3 strikes before termination. The first strike instantly assumes the creator is guilty, as do the next 2, and requires them to attend a condescending so-called copyright class for it to then be removed, whether or not they actually did anything wrong. So the strike is submitted, the video goes down, the money is frozen, the views stop, and therefore your ability to continue making money stops, at least on that content. And this would be like a cop handing you a speeding ticket at your home when you don't own nor never have driven a car. And then saying, I can make it go away if you pay me, or if you want to fight it, you can go to court, spend all your time there, and while you're doing that, by the way, to make this little problem go away, you have to go to driving class at the same time, because fuck you. The system, the way YouTube has built it, is punishment on top of punishment on top of punishment, regardless of whether the creator is guilty. There is some level of following DMCA and just doing what the law says. That strike system, that's YouTube. The American government didn't write into copyright law a couple hundred years ago how copyright strikes should work on YouTube. That's like their thing. And DMCA didn't do that either. On strike 2, which is not a far jump from 1, since the first claimant could file more claims against the channel, legitimate or not, several monetization features are disabled on the channel. On 3, you're out. Now, going from 1 strike to 3 strikes is not a big jump. That is actually a scary situation to be in for a lot of reasons. The number 1 is that the same claimant or a network of them affiliated with each other could coordinate an attack on a channel to bring it down basically overnight. And at that point, you don't really even have any tools anymore to get access to YouTube unless you know someone there to help you, which is bad. So it is pretty scary to get even 1 strike. Now, 0 to 1 is a massive escalation. 1 to 2, again, turns off a lot of the money faucet and would make it awfully hard to legally contest an illegitimate claim for a smaller creator if you don't have income anymore. So it's like the system is set up to screw you before you can even fight for yourself. 3 is potentially the end of everything you've ever built, no matter how long you've been building it on the platform. And then you could see a situation where, let's say in the critical review space of YouTube, which is sadly just like continuing to get enclosed by influencer, just general marketing bullshit and idiocy, there's a system set up where companies could coordinate an attack to strike channels into oblivion if the channels are causing problems for fairly using clips of, say, marketing lies or something. And this is concerning. So that's why, to us, an illegitimate claim needs to be met with a very forceful response from the channel, because you have to establish that you're not going to take bullshit. Now, some of this is stuff that DMCA law requires YouTube to do, and some isn't YouTube's fault. For example, the DMCA allows the platform owner to dodge responsibility for user uploads that genuinely infringe upon copyright. And we do think copyright law is broadly a good thing, and we've enforced our own rights to copyrights in the past. If YouTube were held liable for its users uploading, let's say, Disney movies, it would have stopped existing a long time ago. So it makes sense for YouTube to comply with the law and take down the content. But what's up to YouTube is the rest of it. YouTube has decided how the strike system works. It's decided how reinstatement of content works. YouTube could flip a lever and decide that a strike isn't even applied until a company has followed through on its claim by filing a lawsuit, or until a creator has accepted responsibility and accepted a strike, or has lost in court. Common sense could also be used, such as if you've literally just uploaded Aladdin in the middle of your review or something. But that's a losing game on a platform obsessed with algorithmic determination. YouTube probably doesn't even know how YouTube works anymore. So YouTube's side of the responsibilities are important because they have built a system that punishes without validation. They have to comply with the law, yes, but the punishment is their choice. Of course, there's also the external court system for actually figuring out how it should be handled. It's also wild to us that YouTube doesn't scale the amount of strikes with the tenure, because you have more exposure to copyright strike attacks the larger you are. Likewise, we think it's insane that they don't punish and penalize institutions like Bloomberg for false strikes without follow-through. YouTube has clearly sided with us by reinstating us and removing the strike. But as far as we can tell, there was no actual cost for Bloomberg. So what? Their lawyers had to spend some hours responding to ours. Considering their lawyers are seemingly probably W-2 employees of Bloomberg itself, that's literally just their job. And even if they're not, it's still literally just their job. It didn't really cost Bloomberg anything to do this, realistically. Those people were likely already getting paid to sit there in their ivory tower. And we're just using Bloomberg as an example here. For an entity like Bloomberg, particularly a huge one that Google could never imagine banning, seeing as Bloomberg functionally controls visibility into the stock market with its terminals, there's no downside to just filing strikes on whatever they see fit. Maybe they eventually get sued, maybe they don't. Maybe they Streisand themselves like this time. But in most instances, especially with outlets less willing to put everything on the line like we did by signing under penalty of perjury and channel termination threats that there's no infringement, it's easier to just take the strike and move on. This system is broken. The law does not require YouTube to function in this particular way that it does, only that it must comply with takedowns and have a system for resolving disputes. This is something that we'll spend more time working on and talking about on our GNCA channel in the future if you want to learn more about it. We've got hardware to talk about here. Hopefully the saga's behind us, but we'll link GNCA below if you want to hear more about this, as I spend some time really kind of digging into the system, how it works, and putting some explainers together. Let's do some really quick FAQ, frequently asked questions. I saw two that kept coming up from viewers. I think they're good questions. The first one is, why not just re-upload the claimed clip and move on? So first of all, YouTube has banned large creators in the past for re-uploading content that is currently undergoing legal review and dispute. You are not allowed to do that. I actually agree with that decision. That's crazy, because at that point you're just trying to skirt the system, and like that's not really how it's supposed to work. So that I get. So they're not okay with you just re-uploading to get around it. More importantly, as for why not just re-upload the movie without Bloomberg's clip that we fairly used, the answer is because fuck them, that's why. I mean, it's like, I have a legal right to use it. It starts and stops there. It's really that simple. It's a principle thing. And I do think it's a slippery slope to cave on something when you have a legal right to use it. And we're not going to be a part of the apparatus that slides that slope and the creators on it further into oblivion, to a tightening of free speech and commentary on public figures and the things that they say that could be relevant to content. That's insane. And also the third reason is they could just move the target. All right, so the second one's really quick. People say, why don't you file a lawsuit? If you have a legal right and they've backed off now, they haven't even pursued their belief, if they have one, in infringement, why wouldn't you sue them? And people say this as if it's an easy process. Lewis had a great point when I spoke to him. A lot of them actually, but the one that stands out is he said people want to see that because that's how the system's supposed to work. It's not as simple as you file a suit and lawyers in the background do some stuff and they file some papers and they talk to some judges, and then at the end it's like, can I have money now please? Or you give someone money. It's not that simple. I am a principled person, so for that reason alone, to be very clear, all options remain on the table for us, including legal remedies, and we leave all options in our arsenal. At the same time, that is a substantial time commitment, and I have seen at this point through the process how unfair it can feel in terms of the distribution of time required between the parties based on their size. And I do have an actual job that you all watch us for, and you all have been very vocal about watching us for, which I respect, and I would like to do that job. And so that is a major consideration for me. Now, also just for some background, GN has staff, but we are a flat organization. We do not have executives. We do not have managers. I run it, and it's that simple. So we've got a small team. It's small enough that I personally manage it. Everybody works directly with me and each other, and that means it's not like I can just like hand this to someone. So it would be me and a lawyer against literal teams of lawyers from a multi-billion-dollar corporation that employs people to do this thing and might be good at dragging stuff out. Now, I think we are right, and that matters a lot. But what opportunities might we miss out on by going that path? So something to think about. It's not to say it's entirely off the table. The damages are measurable and immense. The principles matter. Could even set a precedent, who knows? But also I've kind of explained that my time is most effectively spent fighting public battles on behalf of the consumer, and so we'll see. As for everything else, I am very relieved to have that video back up online. It's a huge weight lifted. I'm glad you all can see it again from us, and check it out. Otherwise, I've got a lot of things to do. We're going to focus on what we do best, which is investigating companies that do shady things and reviewing computer hardware. And I'm all out of computer hardware. I'm actually not. There's like, I just filmed a pre-built review and did the cooler testing methodology, and we have some new methods for FPS and gaming benchmarks that we're deploying that are really super cool and very technical. And there's a case that I'm working on reviewing right now. But the point, it was a reference. We've got a lot of computer hardware to review and a lot of investigations. Check out GNCA for some of that, and otherwise check back here for computer part reviews pretty soon. Subscribe for more. Thanks for your support. Sincerely, we'll see you all next time. Don't get Bloomberged. Don't Bloomberg out.